What does it mean to live life as more than a survivor?
Unpacking that question is what we're all about.
On this podcast, we speak about life, its ups and downs, and everything in between.
Join us as we connect with others and discover more through stories and conversations.
Come as you are.
Recovering.
Healing.
Growing.
I'm John Westhaver.
And I'm Michelle Escamilla. And this is More Than a Survivor podcast.
All right, so you just tuned back in. This is the next episode, part 2 of the podcast with our very special guest, Dennis Gardin, who is an extraordinary human being, lots to offer, and I hope that you really enjoyed part 1. And in part 2, so much more, and here we go.
If you're interested in checking out more of this content, let us know. We'd love to continue the conversation with Dennis, so check it out.
I just have to do it because I know it's what I'm supposed to do. You know, my grandmother used to come to the hospital and rub my feet and give thanks, because my feet were the only part of my body that wasn't bandaged. And she would give thanks and rub my feet for hours, and I could not understand what she was giving thanks for. You know, why would she give thanks? And why wasn't she angry with God the same way I was for what he had done to her, and I'm doing quotes here, her favorite grandchild? Why wasn't she angry? And she would tell me that you have to give thanks for all things. You have to give thanks in all things. She said, people take that scripture the wrong way. She said, it's not giving thanks, not just for everything, but you have to give thanks in all things. And she told me that God's not punishing you. God's preparing you. And I didn't want to hear it because it just sounded like some of those real nice platitudes that people spew out there all the time. Because I saw nothing good in this, and I saw this couldn't be a preparation for anything. And you fast forward 100 years, and I sit here now totally understanding what Bitma was talking about. You know, I really was being prepared, and stepping into my purpose allowed me to contribute something, you know, and I know that, and it still amazes me that I even have something to say that people want to hear. And that's not any false modesty. It's amazing to me, but I'm very thankful for the experience, because I couldn't have went to school to study this. No one could have told me. I had to live in that suffering to really understand and live through it so that I can connect with people in their suffering, you know. And when I say I understand what you're going through, yeah, you know, I get it, you know, but I want to be clear that my life and where it is in my journey is not a strategy, but it's a submission. And I don't try to impress my beliefs on anyone else. I just know what worked for me. In my faith, I didn't know how strong my weakness was. You know, and I wasn't walking down the street one day and the clouds parted and there was this rainbow that was shining on me and this majestic voice calling out my name saying, this is what I want you to do, Dennis. It wasn't that at all. For me, I had tried everything else in my journey and nothing else worked. And I turned back to God that I had learned about in church where I was brought up. And when I turned back to him, because it was a last resort. And again, I want to be very clear that I don't try to impress my beliefs on anyone else, because it's a journey for each of us. But I can speak to what worked for me. And I never thought that I would give thanks for every scar on my body. I never thought that I would give thanks for this experience as a preparation for what I was called to do. And I know people say they get pregnant by mistake and that kind of thing, but a birth is never a mistake, because it's too much of a miracle to be a mistake. And we're all born with a purpose. You know, sometimes we find it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we feel that purpose and we're not even aware of it, you know. But let me get off my soapbox. Let me get off my.
Well, let me jump in, because Dennis, I want to really emphasize something that you said some time ago, because we passed by it fairly quickly, and then I was like, oh, this is a good nugget. And you were sharing about the experience you had at this young adults retreat where the person said, that they just hated the way that they looked. And you shared with us how, in a way, you resonated. You resonated with what this person was saying. And there were other people in that room who really were also living and breathing that. And what I want to emphasize is what you said. You said that you recognized that there was so much vulnerability in that space. Not only that, but you mentioned how freeing that vulnerability was. And for those who are listening, I think, we need to preface this or put a little asterisk and say, vulnerability is not easy. Dennis said it himself. It's not that I'm brave. It's not that I could say I mustered all this courage, but in the decision of taking a bold step, you are able to freely access this ability, this space, this stage of vulnerability. And I always tell people, and I try to remind myself of this too, is oftentimes when we think about courage or bravery, immediately like a lion or a dragon or some like majestic animal comes to mind. But the reality is that courage and bravery and being bold really just means that even though I'm afraid, the fear hasn't gone away, I will still take a step forward into this thing that I'm a little unsure about. And to what you're sharing, it was so liberating to hear and just express yourself in a space where multiple people were feeling the same thing.
And when we go through things, and we're talking about, and I'm glad the title of your guys' podcast is More Than a Survivor and not More Than a Burn Survivor. And I think that is so key that you're talking about being more than a survivor, because it's not to be pigeonholed. I mean, it's really not, because the conversation we're having, we're talking about my burn experience. We're talking about our burn experience, but we could very easily be talking about cancer survivors. We could very easily be talking about John. You're a burn survivor, but you're also a car accident survivor, and for you to take that, though you say you were arrogant and you were cocky or whatever, I think that's you were still finding yourself, but you've taken that and to talk to other kids about safety and not being careless. You could have done a lot of other things, but you chose to take that and benefit somebody else, to speak that to someone else. And you never know who needs to hear it. You just never know. I was speaking at a youth home once, and this girl came up to me and she had tears running down her face, and she was pregnant. I think she looks about 15 years old. And she said, "Oh, Mr. Dennis, you were talking to me because I'm struggling with so much." And I assumed she was talking about the pregnancy, being young. I assumed that. And she shared with me that she was in a car accident and she broke both her legs and shattered her pelvis. She was in traction for about 6 months, and then she couldn't walk. Then she elevated to a wheelchair, and then she, all of these things. And when she went back to school, she was on a walker. After like a year and a half or 2 years, she's on a walker. And she said she felt so insignificant and inferior that once she began to walk without the walker, she didn't think she had anything to offer. So she became very sexually active, because what else do I have to offer? And became pregnant as a result of that, and told me that she had plans on giving the baby up for adoption. But listening to the story, she said that she made the decision she was going to keep her child. She was going to keep her child, and she was going to be the best mother she could. But had she not told me that, I would have been assuming something entirely different. So we just never know who we impact. And we don't need to know. That's just our ego for us needing to know. You guys don't know who's going to be impacted by this podcast, but you're doing it. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. I know that the both of you have a tremendous amount to offer because I know you, but you guys are doing it because it needs to be done. When something speaks to our spirit, we have a choice to move on it or not. And when you guys reached out to me, I was super excited that you reached out to me, that I could be a part of this. And I want to continue to be supportive because I believe in it, but I believe in you guys. I do. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we believe in you too. It's it's a powerful experience, and it's a powerful project that we're doing, a passion project for us. And it's really about, like you said, we don't know who it's going to impact, but we know it's going to impact a lot of people, and that's what's
Mm-hmm.
so great about it. It's starting that conversation of whatever people are dealing with. It's like, we all deal with trauma in life, the different variations and degrees and scenarios and situations, and how we recover from it. So it's like, this is a really good um, conversation to start talking about what is more than a survivor. What does it look like to be more than a survivor? When you disappear that
Mm-hmm.
conversation of labeling, like when you let go, shed that label, what opens up for you? Like, what really opens up for you if you can let go of that identity? I'm actually not a survivor. I'm a human being who's experienced a trauma, a burn, cancer, rape, whatever it is. Like, I've experienced this and I'm a human being. What's possible for my life and my future?
Mm-hmm.
And what shows up
Mm-hmm.
for you, Dennis, when you think about that? When you think about shedding that label of I'm a survivor to you're a human being who actually experienced this.
I'm a human being, but I'm an amazing human being. Let me put that caveat with that. and for me, again, it's not a strategy for me. It's a submission, and I submitted to the call on my life. And once I chose to submit to the call, to the purpose for my life, I couldn't do that with conditions. I had to be all in or all out. And I chose to be all in. And that was a scary thing, going back to what Michelle said about being vulnerable, because to submit is to give up that illusion of control. And control really is an illusion. The more we think we're in control, the more we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. And for me, it's being Dennis. And what I mean by that, I don't want to simplify it, but it really is. It's being who I am, all of it. All of it. I am a burn survivor. I am a big-headed Black man. I am getting old. I fall into that category. I am that. I am a father. I'm a good friend. I'm a grandfather. I am, some would argue the world's greatest papa, my granddaughter say. But I am that as well. And I am all of it. I'm the executive director of the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation. I am a lot of things, and still other things to be added. But whatever it is and whatever comes, I embrace that. And not because I like it, not because it's pleasing, but because it's part of the collective experience, because we are a manifestation of our collective experiences. And the burn is just one of thousands of experiences that I've had along this journey, and I recognize there are more days behind me than ahead of me, but that's okay because I accept it. Whatever comes, I am excellent and getting better all the time. So for me, I'm more than a survivor. I'm excellent, and I'm getting better all the time. And that's my mantra. And I say that to myself every morning in the mirror. I look at this guy and I don't know what the day is going to bring, but I'm thankful for it. And I know without question that I will embrace it for whatever comes, because early on in my life, I recognized that control was an illusion, because at 14 years old, I was in control of my world. I was definitely in control of my world. I was going to be a professional baseball player, and I didn't have a plan B, because a plan B only meant you weren't sure about plan A. Now, was I ever going to be a baseball player? Who knows? Because the little league team I was on, I was a bench player. I didn't even get in the game. So was it realistic? I don't know, but it was my reality at the time. But what I do want to emphasize is that in my journey, the times I can pinpoint where I had the most forward progress were the times I wasn't focused on me, but I was looking at what I could do for someone else. I hid in the house for 2 years. I came out to go to school for my senior year of high school. I only went to high school 1 year, but I came out of hiding to go to high school, not because I saw a future for myself and not because I thought I needed an education and not because I didn't like that tutor that came to my house twice a week. I didn't care for her. It wasn't because of any of those things. My family was always big on the importance of education. And I thought, if I go back to school and pretend to be okay and graduate like normal kids, then that would be my gift to my parents and my grandparents. And I don't know if you can say normal and kids in the same sentence, but I went back for that reason. I want to just get a diploma to show them, because all they wanted was for me to be okay. That's all they wanted. So if I could get a diploma and pretend to be okay, then that would be my gift back to them, because they had done so much for me. And I promised myself, no matter how difficult it was, I was never going to let them see me cry. Because my desire to give them this gift was stronger than my fear of what I was going to encounter. And it was rough. The first time I went into the lunchroom in high school, I tried to sit next to a young lady who jumped up and screamed, "How dare you come in this lunchroom and spoil everyone's appetite?" And I wasn't angry with her because I agreed with her. Maybe she was right. Maybe I did spoil everyone's appetite. Those kind of things. The times I would come home and go straight to the bathroom because it was the only door in our house that had a lock and no one could walk in and catch me crying. And the days I couldn't get home, I would sit behind our garage in the alley and just bawl my eyes out so that I could get myself together to walk into the house with a smile on my face so that my mother would think today was another good day. Now I've been saying excellent and getting better all the time for quite a while, but I'll be honest, for a long, long time, it wasn't true. It's not how I felt, but I saw the impact it had on other people. They wanted me to be okay. So let me live other people's expectations. And this is not unique to me. People tend to live other people's expectations, not their own, because people put so much effort into taking care of me. How was I going to say that I didn't like what happened? How was I going to let my family know that every night I'm on my knees praying that I die in my sleep? Because as hard as I was praying for death, I had a family that was praying for life. And I had very good medical care and treatment, but I know without question that my survival had a lot to do with those prayers going up for me. And beyond that, it's just so important to have the love and believe in people when they don't love and believe in themselves. And sometimes that's when they need it the most. But I pretended for so long to be okay for other people that the lie became the truth. The lie became the reality, and I do know positive affirmations work, and we have to be careful what we say, because what we say, we hear, and what we hear, we process, and what we process, we become, but I do know leaning on other people and looking to be a benefit. And it no longer was about what happened to me. It was about, what can I contribute because of it, not despite of it? What can I contribute to the world because of it? And I'd like to believe, no, I am very confident that every day I am contributing to the improvement of the human condition every day. And I don't even have to give it a lot of thought. I just have to continue to walk forward. And my grandfather used to say, if you stumble, make sure you stumble forward, because that's still progress.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
I love that. Dennis, I have a question, if I may jump in. I'm trying to put together this puzzle that you're telling us of the struggle that you went through, the healing process, then everything that you went through going to school, and now hearing you say just how you continue to grow. I'm putting this puzzle together, but I'm missing the piece that tells me about how did you get to that place from living in this really hardship to now being where you are. Where's that puzzle piece? Help us to connect and share with us a little bit about where you are now as well.
Um, I'm not sure if it's a puzzle piece that's missing. I think more, Michelle, that it's so simplistic that it appears to be missing. And really, um, when I stopped focusing on me and began focusing on what was possible, when I began focusing on what could I do to benefit someone else, when I and you hear people talk about, oh man, I would do that if, but when I retire, I'm gonna. If I had more money, I can. But the reality is, we have exactly what we need today, right now, to make a difference in someone's life. We really do, and it doesn't take huge things. It takes what we have, because we have been provided. We came to this planet with everything we need to fulfill our purpose, but we have the choice to do that or not. And it does, and it's not about being courageous. It's about being true with who we are. I don't have to know what I'm supposed to do. I just have to be willing to do what I'm supposed to do. I don't have to even know what it is. I just have to be willing to do it. And that may sound confusing, but it really is that simple. And like I said, where I am today is stepping into opportunities to make a difference. And that's really but it took me to begin to recognize that I do have something to offer. Because we live in a culture that tells you not to compliment yourself. We can compliment someone else, but if you compliment yourself, then you're being arrogant or you're being cocky. And we teach that all the time, because I've done a lot in my life. I went on to college and did all right. And had a couple of successful businesses and some not so successful. I did radio. I was a radio personality for a while. I had a television show, a television talk show. Now here's this guy that's on TV, smiling on the TV screen, that used to hide in the house because of that face. What changed? And I believe that a problem is a perception, not a situation. Because I have the same scars now that I had when I was 14 years old coming home from the hospital. I have the same scar. My face is disfigured now the same way it was when I hid in the house for 2 years. That didn't change. What changed was my perception of what was a problem. And I step into most things that way, and I just think that as we focus on our purpose and not on the person, I think that's where the growth comes, because all of my forward progress, it's all connected, and I can look back and connect it to times that I tried to make a difference in someone else's life. And that's where I am today. Do I still have my struggles? Yes. I'm doing a sensitivity training all week at a burn center. And I have to be honest with you, I am struggling with it emotionally. And I've gone to hundreds of burn centers, but I always get a kind of a different kind of feeling, that I can't even really describe. But I know that my trauma will always be connected to a burn center, and it's just connecting me into that past trauma. But that's okay, because if I focus on that, I wouldn't even still be here, but I'm focusing on why I'm doing it. There were things that benefited me as a patient. There were things that didn't benefit me. And I have an opportunity to share from a patient's perspective, from a family member's perspective, and from a helping professional's perspective with nursing staff and doctors and therapists that maybe they won't hear, and maybe it'll impact how they provide care to those who are coming behind us. And if I can offer something to make the road a little smoother for those that come behind us, then I have an obligation to do that. I mean, is it hard? Sure it is. But I have an obligation. I've got an obligation to give back to a world that's given me so much. And sometimes people brag and get happy about things they're pleased with. But for me, Michelle, more to the point of your question, to me, I'm pleased with all of it, And I did say earlier that I was a famous cook, right? I'm very famous. I'm magic in the kitchen. But you can't bake a cake with just sugar. You got to put a little salt in there to balance it out, and life is the same. That might not be a good analogy, but life is the same way. If it was all good, would we appreciate it the same way? If we had no struggles, would we be strong? Where would we gather our strength? If we didn't have challenges, where would we get our knowledge from? Where would our character be built? So I just embrace it all. And it sounds simple, but it really, really is. It really is just that simple. I used to look in the mirror. I used to count how many times during the course of a day that somebody called me a name, made fun of me, or rejected me. And I would multiply that number by 10. And that would be the number of times, as I'm staring in the mirror, that would be the number of times I would repeat to myself, I love me. So for every one negative thing that was said to me, or negative thing how I was treated, that would mean 10 times I would tell myself that I love me. And I thought I was going crazy talking to myself, but I continued to do it. I love me. And in time, I began to hear it. I love me. And I didn't get to love initially, but I did start liking myself a little bit. And that was a major step back towards loving myself. And all I ever really wanted, with everything that I've done in my life and all the successes I've had, all I really wanted was to walk into a room and not be noticed. I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to be normal. As simple as that sounds, that's all I wanted. And that wasn't to be my fate ever again. And now I walk into a room, as you guys know, I walk into a room and I own it. I own it, because that's what I carry with me, because I love me. I mean, I really and truly love me. And in loving myself, it has allowed me or enabled me to love my entire surroundings. And that has nothing to do whether the sun is shining or whether it's raining. I love my entire surroundings, because if there's no enemy within, there's no enemy on the outside. And I love me. And I love you, Michelle. I love you, John. I love this podcast. I love the world. I just love everything and everybody. And, I'm it seemed like I'm kind of joking about it, but I'm really not. I'm really not. Yeah.
I so appreciate, Dennis, you sharing this. And I think, again, I feel like I need a highlighter to underline this and say and remind people that what Dennis is sharing is, it was not just 1 year to the next. It was not 6 months to the next 6 months. What he is saying, and what I want to highlight and underline here, is that there was a mindset shift. There was something that he had to work through. And that's something that John and I have also spoken about, that it is a choice that needs to be made. And how wonderful it is that there were people in community who were praying for you, who were encouraging you. And we realize that there will be people that will be encouraging you. But until that moment when we decide to accept and also practice being that kind to ourselves, is when this shift really started to full force take on. And you saw it really just being part of who you are and the way that you present yourself and the way that you are towards other people and in the world. So we so appreciate that.
And it's moments. It's not a moment. It's moments. And when I was introduced the first day I did the program over here at the Burn Center, she introduced me as a friend, somebody that's been working with the Burn Center a long time, and a burn survivor who's now thriving. And I said, well, okay, you can say I'm thriving. She said, but you are. I say, it's okay to say that I'm thriving as long as you qualify it, because it's very easy to believe that someone who's thriving no longer has challenges. I say, you can say I'm thriving in the introductions. I say, but you need to qualify it by letting people know that thriving doesn't mean all the challenges are behind me. Thriving doesn't mean I've got over it, because I'm challenged with things right now today, but being challenged with things and how I embrace it, it can be misleading. It can be misleading, because any news that I get, any challenges, I take them on the same way. I am Dennis. I am, and I don't want to come off as I'm this being up here. No, I'm struggling. Like I said, I'm struggling this week. and I'm struggling with, I'm emotional. My emotions are all over the place, but I step into it. And I know once I keep taking deep breaths and get through this week, I know for a fact that it'll be a very cathartic experience for me, and I will grow from it, and I will heal a little bit more from it. And I embrace that, because I don't ever want people to, because sometimes the kids at the different burn camps, they say, oh, Mr. Dennis, I want to be like you once I get past all of this. And I don't think it's really waiting to get past. I don't think it's waiting to get past our stuff. I think it's finding where that stuff fits in our life so that we can continue to be productive and move forward. Yeah. So I thank you guys for just sharing a little time and space with me, because it's really interesting, the timing on this podcast, because of how I'm struggling with the program I'm doing this week. I needed to share this conversation with you guys more than you know. So
awesome. Well, we love having you. You got a lot to offer, and we appreciate you sharing and being here with us. And you're, who you show up for me is of service and love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What else is there, right?
And
Dennis, really,
Go ahead, John.
No, it's just completely of service. Like, that's like, it just encapsulates, I think, everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just going to jump in quickly, and Dennis, I'm curious to know now, what are some of the things that this mindset, this is a chapter of your life, what has it led you to? So I know that you said you're in Georgia, but we would love for you to share with folks a little bit about what this season has been like for you.
Well, I'm in Georgia, but I'm still in Detroit as well. So I'm back and forth, because I still maintain my home in Detroit, and my sister and brother-in-law share that spot with me, and we do foster care for special needs kids. So it's the house that we grew up in. So it's the family home that's always been full of love, and the door has always been open for those to come in who will. And I don't know. I guess to talk about what this season is like for me, I think I can give you a couple of examples that really resonated with me that may speak to it. When I was about, and I don't know why this stuck with me, but when I was about 5 years old, my mom was preparing lunch. It was summer vacation, no school. My mom's preparing lunch, and this hobo came to the door, because back then the term homeless people didn't exist. It was a hobo, and he knocked on the door and he said, ma'am, I noticed your fence. That gate out there needs to be repaired. I can repair that for you for, a couple of dollars or something to eat. And my mother said, well, no, my husband and my father, they take care of all the repairs around here. They just haven't gotten to that yet. But I'm preparing lunch for my children. You're more than welcome to come in and get washed up and have lunch with us. And he did. And we're sitting at the kitchen table. All the kids were eating and doing the madness that comes with a lot of kids sitting at a table. And my mom is having this adult conversation with this man. And I'm just looking at him in awe. And when we finished lunch, she put him some food, wrapped him up some food in some aluminum foil and gave it to him. And he said, well, ma'am, I can repair that gate. She said, no. You don't have to repair the gate. I have someone to do that. But God bless you. And she gave him the food. And he left. So my siblings are outside playing, and my mom's cleaning up the kitchen. And I said, Mama, who was that man? And she never stopped what she was doing. She said, I don't know. And I said, well, why did you let him eat with us? And she was so simple when she said, because he was hungry. And it was nothing else beyond that. And I said, wow, he was hungry and you fed him, and it didn't matter that you knew him or not. And that just stayed with me, because there's never a wrong time. There's never a bad time to do good. And there's always an opportunity to contribute something. And my mama said he was hungry. And it was just so simple. I was looking for this big explanation, but it was just so simple. And another example is I was going to a meeting and I didn't have any cash, and I ran in the gas station to get some gas. And there was a guy outside of the gas station panhandling. And I didn't have any cash. And I said, but I don't have anything today, but God bless you, have a good day. And I went on my way. And I'm back at my car and I'm pumping gas. And I see the guy walking towards me. And I'll be honest, my thought was, I've already told him I don't have anything. And here he comes. He's going to ask me again. And he walked up to me while I was pumping gas. And he said, excuse me, sir. I just wanted to come over and thank you. Now I'm confused. You're coming to thank me. And I'm just listening to him. He said, yeah. He said, he said, I stand in front of this gas station, another gas station, and a couple of stores, and thousands of people pass me every day, and I'm invisible. He said, even though you didn't give me any money, you stopped. You touched me on the arm. You looked me in the eye and told me you didn't have anything but have a good day. He said, that meant so much to me because you acknowledged that I existed. And he walked away. And I'm not one that's generally at a loss for words, but I didn't know what to say, but I understood what he meant. He said, you acknowledged that I existed, which was more than any money you could have given me. You would have given me. And you may not think that's a big thing, but you just never know what a person is carrying with them. And it's not maybe someone's being put out of their home and you pay their mortgage. It's not those kind of things. It's just sharing who we are. And we all can do that. We all can share who we are. Another example is More Than a Survivor podcast. You guys have put effort into putting a podcast and taking the time and energy to do this. And you don't have to, but just those kind of, and, I've always challenged when I hear the term random acts of kindness, because I don't believe any act of kindness is random. And whenever I hear that, I challenge it. But what do you mean random act of kindness? No act of kindness is random, and you guys are performing an act of kindness here because you don't know who will be sitting in their home in a dark room with their computer screen on, feeling like no one in the world knows they even exist. And you guys are offering something that may resonate with someone. And really what you're doing, in my opinion, is sharing a message of hope, and you're speaking hope into people's lives. And as you have for me today, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And maybe I didn't answer your question, Michelle, but I think that was needed to be said.
No, I so appreciate that. I think just here, I could listen to you all day long, and I know John would say the exact same thing. So I think we're just so grateful because you do. It's funny that you're sharing and saying that through this podcast, which our intention really is to bring hope to other people. And in listening to you, I know that we feel our cups are filled, and so it's mutual, it's reciprocal. And we're so grateful that you took some time to be on our podcast today.
Yes. And I look forward, I will say this on the podcast, I'm looking to put a couple of programs together, and I'm looking forward to the day of sharing the stage with the two of you. I know, John, you and I have talked about it over the years, but I think we're getting very, very close to that actually becoming a reality. So I'm putting it out there. So you put it out there.
Make it happen. Yep.
Yes.
No, it's good. Yeah. No, I like that idea, Dennis. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
it's
Well,
about
we can't
creating
wait.
the future.
So people out in the social media world can hear it, so they can begin asking you, "Hey, when is that happening?" Subtle pressure.
So what's funny is what that is. Before I was just having a conversation with Michelle about doing virtual stuff and virtual sessions, and it's going into schools and talking to students, and what would that look like? What would you want to talk about and things like that there. So I'm always I've been professionally been speaking for 20 years now. I've done over 700 presentations the last 20 years. I love speaking, but I'm in the space of more of collaboration. I think it brings more value. I think it adds a different dynamic, and you reach a greater audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, with the trainings I'm doing this week, it wraps up on Friday after several hundred trainings this week. That's what it seems like. And I've got my team coming in on Thursday, and we're meeting with the team at the Burn Center. But we're also we're either going to live stream or we are definitely recording the presentation on Friday, and we're going to get that edited up to make it available just to hospitals everywhere, just so they can get that message, that has some resonates with where they are. Yeah. So let's just make it happen. Now, is there anything you
Yes.
didn't cover today that you maybe wanted to cover? I get really, really long answers.
Well, I love the thinking. So we're excited for all that's to come. And John and I actually kind of spoke about this as another signature piece of More Than a Survivor, because we do recognize that we often talk about really heavy topics. And we're also people who love to have fun. So
Yeah.
I'm going to transition us into our fun question segment. So what we're doing is John and I, at the end of our episodes, will pick a fun question and just learn a little bit about either each other or our guests. So, Den, if that's okay with you, I'll ask you your question.
Okay, it's fine with me.
Right.
Yes.
I just needed the verbal consent.
Oh, okay.
So
Fire away.
the question that I had for you, all right, question that I had was, tell us one of your hidden talents.
That's a very long list. That's a very long list.
Gosh. Do you like how I emphasize one of your hidden talents?
One, you did emphasize it, and you drug that out to one. Actually, one of my hidden talents is I'm an absolutely amazing cook in the kitchen. And I won't say I have skills in the kitchen. The word gifted has been bantied about, that I'm gifted in the kitchen. And I grew up in a large family, and it was an extended family. And my mom and my grandmother and my dad spent a lot of time in the kitchen, and I was always in the kitchen. And my mom made sure that all of her babies were pretty self-sufficient in the kitchen, but I took it to a whole nother level. But I am absolutely an amazing cook. So I might get people calling in and asking about me cooking them something, and I actually love cooking as well.
That's so neat.
It is. Yeah, shoot me a question, John. Give it to me.
What was the other question we were talking about too? The character, fantasy character or cartoon character. If you were to identify with a fantasy character or cartoon character, who would it be?
Yes, the question, if I remember correctly, was if you could be any fictional character, what fictional character would you be? It's a tough question. I had to really think about that one.
Which a fictional character? And we're talking a cartoon.
While you're thinking about that, let us share so that it gives some context. I said that I would be probably any Disney princess from the 90s because we were constantly trying to be the hero of our own story. And also all the 90s Disney princesses had excellent music. So I would be singing along with every tune. So heroine and music. And John, your answer?
Mine was, I ran for Ren and Stimpy in the 90s. Remember the Ren and Stimpy cartoons?
Wow.
That's what I said.
Just because I'm a practical, I love to joke around and carry on and goof off. And that was just, that just comes to mind. It's like.
Wow.
So we'll ask again, if you could be any fictional character, who would you be?
I would be, and I'm trying to remember his name, but there was a television show that used to be on, and it was called The Millionaire. And I forget the millionaire's name, but the millionaire had his lawyer. He would randomly give people $1 million and anonymously, and it would impact their lives. And and the show ran back in the 50s, and he would randomly give people $1 million, and it would show the people and what they were struggling with in their life. And during the course of this 30-minute show, you would see how the $1 million changed their life. And every week he'd give somebody $1 million and it would change their life. And I would probably be that character because he did it anonymously. They didn't know who they got the $1 million from because the attorney is the one that gave it to him. But every week somebody's life was changed in an amazing way. And it was these feel-good human interest stories. And it was pretty cool. So if I could be any character without really giving it a lot of thought, I would be the millionaire on that television show. Because he was a fictional character, but didn't have to. Or did you want cartoon?
No, that's perfect.
That was perfect
that's
answer.
perfect.
But I like the way that, and it wasn't so much the $1 million, which that was a lot of money back in the 50s. It's not so much today. But it was more than $1 million. I like the idea that he was able to impact people's lives in a positive way without them ever knowing who he was. So that would be the character I would pick without giving it a lot of thought. Yeah. They only got to know the attorney who represented the guy. They didn't know who the guy was. So it was actually pretty cool. It was actually pretty cool. Yeah.
Now you have me wanting to go back and watch, find out what that show is to watch it.
Yeah, it's called The Millionaire, and it ran for about 4 or 5 years in the mid 50s. Yeah, or late 50s, early 60s. The Millionaire. Yeah.
Cool.
Black and white though, so you might be disappointed it's in black and white. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dennis, thank you for being on our podcast. We completely love you. We thank you for being here, sharing. Yeah.
There's one thing I'd like. Is there one thing I can read before we end the podcast?
Yeah. What do you want to? Yeah.
And it's something that I use in my presentations, and it's something that I found in a magazine. I was somewhere in the world and I saw it in a magazine, and I tore the page out. It's called the Survivor Psalm, and I tore the page out because it really resonated with me, and I carried it around in my briefcase for years. And believe it or not, a couple of months after I tore the page out of the magazine, I was actually on stage presenting on a panel with the very doctor who wrote it. And to me, because he was a physician, he was a doctor and taught at University of Michigan. And we were on the stage together, and I was like a groupie. I was like, oh my God, Dr. Hochberg, I got your thing in my, and so it was just, it was meant to happen. It was, but it's called the Survivor Psalm. We talked a lot about how we fight to hold on to our victimhood. And this speaks to that. And it's called the Survivor Psalm by Dr. Frank Hochberg. I have been victimized. I was in a fight that was not a fair fight. I did not ask for the fight. I lost. There's no shame in losing such fights, only in winning. I have reached the stage of survivor. I am no longer a slave of victim status. I look back with sadness rather than hate. I look forward with hope rather than despair. I may never forget, but I need not constantly remember that I was a victim, because I am now a survivor. And that is just so incredibly powerful, because we do fight to hold on to our victimhood, but in the end, you don't want to win that fight. There's no shame in losing, only in winning. And it's called the Survivor Psalm, and it just really resonates with me. And I thought it would be appropriate to share that with you guys as we end this podcast.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yes. So now you can say how wonderful I was and your goodbyes.
Yeah, no, it was awesome to have you. We love you and all that. You're amazing. You're a huge contribution to the world. We just and I'm glad that our paths have crossed.
Yes, as am I. And I hope you know me a little bit better now, Michelle.
For those who are listening or watching, I, before starting, said that I had briefly met Dennis. I have heard of Dennis, and now I feel like I'm connected to Dennis. And so for those of you who are curious and want to learn more as well, we'll make sure to leave his information of how you can contact him in our description. And Dennis, we look forward to, like you said, virtually and being on that stage of sharing and encouraging other people around us.
Great.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in next episode.
All right.
Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode with Dennis Gardin. Your support means everything to us. If you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe, like, and leave a rating. Your feedback not only helps us reach more people, but it also makes our show even better. Got a question or a thought on today's topic? Drop us a comment. We read every single one. And if you think a friend would appreciate this episode, don't hesitate to share it. We'll see you next time. Thanks and goodbye.